Well, hello everyone who's watching on YouTube, Vimeo, around the world. I'm Maurice Barratt and I've got another study in the series 6,000 Years of Babylon. I've written 5 books to cover it. We're up to book 3. We're going through it. There's about 50 studies. It's quite comprehensive. The books have a lot more information than I tell you tonight. There's lots of information. There's lots of pictures in it to show the symbolism that we're on about now, methods of manipulation. And I've split this into 2 parts. So this is part 2, methods and manipulations. It was number 23, so this is 23A. I'll have to amend my notes because it's too long a study to do in one. Well, for those who didn't see part 1, we're looking at methods and manipulations, how the devil infiltrates our mind to get at our heart. We talked about the mind, the conscious thinking, the subconscious thinking, and the devil puts images and music and all sorts of things in our mind to get to our heart. We've got to filter them, bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. So we've got to filter every image you see, every music you listen to, everywhere you go, every church you go into, you've got to filter it. Is this God or is it the counterfeit? Because if you don't, if you're a dustbin and you take any old rubbish, it'll go in your heart. You'll believe it in your head and it'll be in your heart and you'll get in error. So I'm trying to expose the ways that Satan manipulates this world. And so we can see if we're trapped, because we've got to get out of Babylon, haven't we? You can't go in a supermarket without music playing. Everywhere you go, there's music playing. You're going to buy clothes, a dress, and there's music playing. What's music got to do with clothes? But people can't get in the car without music. They switch the music on as soon as they get in the car. You see it. You see the car vibrating with these people playing loud rock music. Don't boom, 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 and it's so under the head doesn't explode. But it's a drug. They're addicted to music. It's the trigger to worship music. Nebuchadnezzar, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego, when you hear the sound of all kinds of music, bow down and worship. The world is getting besotted with music because it'll be the trigger to worship. Have you seen the Olympic Games? Have you seen the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham? Did you see the opening ceremony? That was satanic with the bull. The woman riding it worshipped the bull, that's Baal. And they're all bowing down, worshipping it with the light. Bowing down to worship. Can you see how they're preparing us? And they had rock musicians there, didn't they? When you hear all sorts of music, bow down and worship. They're preparing us for it. So let me stick me to the notes. Let me leave a quote from Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy, the Russian, 1890. This is what he said. Great philosopher. Music makes me forget my real situation. That's a drug. I'm spaced out. I've got drunk. I don't know. My wife's left me. My kid's on drugs. But I'll get drunk and I forget it all. He's saying music does that. Music makes me forget my real situation. It transports me into a state which is not mine own. Music. You enter another world. Oh, I got lost in the music. Have you listened to that music? Oh, I floated. It takes me away. You know, music can be a drug. It doesn't affect everyone, but people who are into it's a drug. It transports me into a state which is not mine own. Under the influence of music, it's like a drug under the influence of LSD. Under the influence of music, I really seem to feel what I do not understand, to have powers which I cannot have. Can you see the power of music? This is a great intellect, so-called, of the world, telling you about music. Well, music has a great effect on your subconscious mind. Tell Laura I love her, tell Laura I need her. I used to cry as a 16-year-old kid hearing that, because Laura got killed in a car crash, if you don't know the song, and I was going to meet her and she's dead, tell Laura I love her, and tears used to come. Music evokes things, and I can still now, if I sit back and if I heard the song, it would evoke the memory that I felt when I was 16. That's the power of music. You know, music can evoke a thought. You can hear a song, in a pop song, and you think, oh, that's when I was with that woman on the beach and I did this. This is when I got into a fight. That music was playing in the pub. It evokes memories. It's very powerful. It's evocative. Just like perfume is. When you smell a perfume, and you can remember an affair you had 20 years ago. Oh, that woman had that same perfume. When you smell that, it brings it all back. The lust and the desire. And music's very powerful, you know. Satan uses the senses, our emotions, so smells, touch, feel of something. When you feel silk, it can evoke something to you in your memory. The devil's very clever at manipulating us through our senses, hearing, seeing, music, touch. Can you see how powerful it is? And we don't realise that, we're not aware, and it gets through to Christians. I've heard Christians say to young people, have you heard the lyrics of that song? You shouldn't be listening to that music. The lyrics are obscene. And they say, oh, I don't listen to the words. It's just, I like the music. They're deceived. The words are going in, whether they hear them or not. It goes into your subconscious and it comes out. That's why kids are full of lust and debauchery, because they're hearing these pop songs. Debbie Harris, 30 years ago, she was saying commit suicide in a song. You know, when you're 30, you're old, so you may as well top yourself, enjoy yourself and then top yourself, because the life's not worth living after 30. Telling young people nihilistic thoughts, you know, life has no meaning. So enjoy yourself, just let it all out and enjoy yourself. And when you're 30, you may as well top yourself, because life's not worth living. You've had all your pleasure. And these songs, the pop songs, if you listen to the words, they're unbelievable. And they're going in subliminally. Music opens you up to get the word in. Loudness is another way. Music's a wonderful thing, but when it's loud, it's bombastic. It takes over you. When you go to a disco, if you've been to a disco, the music hits you. You feel it in your body. The sound waves, the big sound waves, the bass, boom, boom, boom. And now we can make sounds that are lower than you could get naturally. God gave us natural instruments, a saxophone, a piano, but there are certain limitations. But now with electronic music, we can make sub-bass. Do you know they can kill rats with loud music, with low notes? Because music is vibration, so if you get a very low note and very loud, it's a big sound wave, and they put a rat in a cage and it killed it, shook the organs out of it. Music passes through your body, it doesn't go around it, you know. Did you know that? Sound waves pass through you. Because if we hear a bass on the other side of that wall, there's no air gaps, and we hear boom, boom, boom. You don't hear the high notes, do you? Because they get dissipated in the wall. But the big notes, the big sound waves, they hit the wall and they vibrate the wall. And the wall vibrates the air on the other side. That's how you hear it. Sound is vibration, so unless your ear hears the sound, the vibrations, there's no sound. So it's passed through the wall. And when you're in a disco and it hits you, it's passing through you, literally through your body. It can put demons in you, just like the Spirit of God, and worship can take demons out of you. Sound waves are powerful. They use ultrasound to get rid of cancers, burn cancers out and all sorts of things, don't they? I'm a sound engineer, so it fascinates me. I don't want to bore you with the details, but just know that sound is very powerful. And loudness, I've said it already, but loud music has the same effect as amphetamine pills. That's a scientific fact. Loud music hitting you, it releases adrenaline, which is what amphetamines do. You get a high. So young people can be on Sunday morning in church and there's loud rock music going and worshipping God, and they think it's the Spirit of God, they're shooting adrenaline. They're getting high on adrenaline. Of course, with any drug, there's a come down. That's why after they've been to church and they come home, they're flat. They want to watch television or whatever, and they're looking for the next worship meeting. When's the next rave, Christian rave? When's the next? Because it's like drugs. You've come down off it. You shouldn't be coming down after a meeting, should you? It's false if you come down. It's the drug effect. It should be lasting, shouldn't it? Sport. Did you know the devil used sports? entertainment. It's a powerful tool to divert the minds of the masses away from reality. My kid's on drugs, my husband's left me, I've got no money to pay the bill. But United are playing on Saturday, we're in the cup. See, it's a diversion, isn't it? Entertainment is a diversion. Sport's a form of entertainment, isn't it? Entertainment is the devil's drug to anaesthetise us to reality. Your kids are on drugs, your husband's left you. Let me tell you a few jokes. We listen to a comedian, oh, I feel better now. But when you turn the television off after having a good belly laugh at the comedian, your kids are still on drugs, your husband still left you. It doesn't solve anything. How can entertainment change your character? It's a drug to alleviate you to the realities of life. And thank God we've got beer and drugs for the world. They need it. They're in so much pain. They need to get drunk to get rid of all the pain. But we're Christians. That's the devil's drug to take them away. We don't need entertainment, do we? Take your mind off your problems. When I've got problems, I don't look at entertainment to take them away. I'm like David, I say, why are you cast down, O my soul? What's the problem? Why am I depressed? You don't put music on to make you feel better when you're depressed. You say, why am I depressed? Deal with the roots. And then you think, oh, I've had a row with my husband, that's why. Oh, I've just got the sack. I've had a... Well, make up with your husband. And then put the music on. Is any merry? Let him sing some. Sort out the problem first and then put the music on. Sort out the problem and then enjoy things and then have entertainment. Don't use entertainment to take your problems away, because it doesn't. It's an illusion. Your problem's still there after the entertainment. And sport's a powerful tool. Amazing how sports fills conversations at workplaces. When you go in Sunday morning, did you see United? Or the Rugby World Cup? Or this? Or the Olympic Games is on? Or the Commonwealth Games? Sports taken over. The newspapers. How many pages in the common working man's newspaper is dedicated to sports? Some men get the newspaper and they turn to the back page. No, not the news, the sport. And they read the paper backwards, don't they? Because there's 6 pages of sport. It's powerful, you know. You know, when the World Cup was on, churches put big screens in the churches. In America, they put big screens so they didn't miss the World Cup. We're going to alter the service. We'll watch the World Cup and have the service. So they put a big screen in the churches so they wouldn't miss it, and altered the church to suit the Rugby World Cup. Amazing, isn't it? You know, when I go to America, I expect that most pastors are more interested in baseball or American football than they are in God. You know, when they say, well, you've preached, come home for dinner before you go home for dinner. They don't talk about the service, and that was challenging, brother. And they say, how's England and how's this and how's that? And then they say, well, I chill out after. I'm going to watch the baseball. And they spend the afternoon watching baseball, not talking about God. They want to chill out because that's work. Preaching is work, not the life, it's work. So now I need to chill out, watch the rugby. And it's amazing. Some churches close the meeting early when there's a big match on. In America, the baseball, the Super Bowl, they'll finish. Well, we'll finish church early for the Super Bowl. It's amazing how many pastors, I'm amazed how, are really into it. I was an international gymnast. I appreciate sport. I like rugby and I like watching, but it's of no consequence. I wouldn't change my plan. I wouldn't stop preaching because there's a rugby match on. It's men throwing a bag of wind about, isn't it? That's all it is. And it's all right. Sport can be a relaxation, but it's taken over the world. The devil uses it. Those who plan to take over the world, put the man of sin in charge, decided hundreds of years ago to use sport to divert the people. I'm going to read you what they said. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which they say was written by Jews, but it was the Jesuits who wrote it. And this is what they said. This is a chapter on distractions. In order that the masses themselves may not guess what we are about, we further distract them with amusements. games, pastimes, passions, people's palaces. Soon we shall begin through the press to purpose competitions in art, in sport, in all kinds. This was 100 years ago. The elite pour millions of dollars. That's why multi-billionaires buy Manchester United. They're not interested in sport. They've been told, support sport, it's got to increase. Now women are playing football. There's a Women's World Cup and women are playing rugby. And racing and car racing and athletics, it's a planned purpose to take people away. So we'll fiddle while Rome's burning. Do you know, people wouldn't worry if there's a nuclear war. Yeah, but we'll just watch the match. Yeah, but you need to get in the air and shake us. Yeah, but it's the World Cup. You forget reality when you're besotted by sport. It's a great distraction. These interests will finally distract their minds from questions in which we should find ourselves compelled to oppose them. We'll have to answer questions, what we're doing to the world, with the pandemics and the famines and the control and infiltrating the water with chemicals, all the things they're doing. We'd have to answer the question, so we'll distract them with sport and entertainment. People live by the soaps. They think they're real, don't they? Did you see what she did on Coronation? She shouldn't have done that. They talk about that the people are real. They're just shadows on the screen. They're acting. You know, an actor is a liar, is being what is not. Hypocrite is the same word in Greek as actor. Did you know? The Greek word for hypocrite is actor. It's the same word. They're being what they're not. I'm acting like a king, but I'm not a king. I'm an actor. But everyone thinks he's a king. And if you watch the soaps enough, you get involved in the stories and you start saying, why did he do that? He shouldn't have done that. He should do this. And we start nosing in people's lives. Soaps are based on gossip. And we love gossip, so that's why we watch soaps, isn't it? It's amazing. We get involved in people's lives. It's a distraction. And I'm prone to it as much as you. If you can think Coronation Street's rubbish. But if you watch 6 episodes, force yourself to watch 6. You want to watch the 7th because you want to know what happens. There's always a cliffhanger at the end. I wonder what they'll do. They always end on what? It's very clever manipulation. It's an acquired taste, but it's addictive. Number 8. So sport they use. Fear and terrorism. Well, we've seen that over the last few years. When I was a boy, there was no talk of terrorism. We didn't know what it was, terrorism. What's that? That happened in other countries, it wasn't. But now everyone knows what terrorism. Terror is to cause terror. It's not to kill people. When the 9/11 and they killed a few people. When I say a few people, it wasn't many, was it? It was 4,000. That's terrible. Do you know how many people die of cancer in America every day? That's not a tragedy, is it? Oh, well, 1 in 3 people get cancer in America. Thousands die every day, but 4,000 died because it was a terror attack. It's to cause terror. It doesn't cause terror that people are dying on the roads. Do you know that the motor car is the biggest cause of death in children worldwide? More children die of the motor car than malaria and typhoid and yellow fever. The motor car. But we don't ban the motor car, do we? Well, 9/11 started the plan that would trap the world, I believe, and this pandemic that we've just gone through is another stage, a massive stage. Terror is a mind weapon, fear, terror, fear. People who will agree to almost anything to be relieved of fear. Let me say that again. People, the masses, will agree to almost anything to be relieved of fear. They can't handle fear, so they'll do anything. They'll give up all the rights. They'll do anything. They'll give all the money away to escape fear because they can't handle fear. As Christians, fear doesn't come into your vocabulary, does it? Live without carefulness. That means don't have fear. I refuse to have fear. I don't do fear. I don't care if I'm going to be hung tomorrow or burned to the stake. I will not fear. I've decided. Why should I fear? It's going to happen anyway, so fear won't help it. I won't have less pain if I fear or don't fear. So suck it up. I'm going to die for Jesus. It's a fact. So why should I fear? I'm going to meet Jesus. Is it a dark tunnel or is it a gateway to eternal life? It's a door. It's not a dark tunnel, is it? We'll go through the dark tunnel. Why not say it's a doorway and I'll meet Jesus? It's a doorway to love. Don't do fear. I can't pay the rent. Don't fear. My marriage is on the rocks. Don't fear. Fear doesn't help anyone. Does fear solve the problem? Did fear solve anything? It stops you thinking logically. When you're frightened, you don't think logically. It stops you thinking. Fear paralyses you. People are paralysed with fear. They can't think, what shall I do? And they're like, in the Bible it said they were astounded. They were like astonished, we'd say, but they were astounded. In other words, they were like stone, they couldn't move. So fear. And the bowels loosen, don't they, with fear? It paralyses you. You can't think straight when you refuse to have fear. Why should I fear? The Almighty God is my refuge and strength. Why should I fear? Why should I doubt? Cheer up, you saints of God. There's nothing to worry about. What is it? Cheer up, you saints of God. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to make you feel afraid. There's nothing to make you doubt. Remember, Jesus never fails, so why not trust him and shout, you'll be sorry you worried at all tomorrow morning. You better learn that. Cheer up, you saints of God. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to make you feel afraid. There's nothing to make you doubt. Remember, Jesus never fails, so why not trust him and shout, you'll be sorry you worried at all tomorrow morning. You better learn that. Engrave it on your heart. Pin it over your bed. So you put it on the fridge every time you open the fridge. I don't do fear. I'm a child of God. Let's get positive. We're moving on. Leave the past behind you. I've decided I'm not doing fear. That doesn't mean it doesn't attack me at times. I think, oh, I can't pay the bills. What's this? And then I think, oh no, I'm going to trust God. I've done it. I'm doing it quicker and quicker over the years. At the time, it'd take me a week of, oh, what will I do? What will I do? And, oh, Lord, help me. And I feel sorry for myself. And, oh, come to my help, Lord. You've got to help me. Now I can get rid of it in 20 minutes. I think, oh, what's going to happen now? I thought, well, I'll speak in tongues. You know, if you start speaking in tongues and praising God, you think, well, I'm not fearing. God's with me. All right, I'll go to jail. All right, this will happen. So what? It's all right, isn't it? You're all right in jail if God's with you. If he's not, pity you. If I make my bed in hell, God's there. What's the problem? That's what David said. I can't escape your presence. If I take you, if Jesus goes with me, I'll go anywhere. That's another song. I'm not going to sing it for you. Jesus goes with me, I'll go anywhere. So fear, terrorism, Homeland Security, they brought that in after 9/11. I remember I was in Canada at Niagara Falls, that's on the border of Canada, you know, New York State. I was at Niagara Falls preaching, and the people said, oh, no, we're in Canada, on the other side of Niagara Falls in Canada. And they said, let's go over to America, cross the border, because they make nicer steaks there. We'll treat you to a meal. And there's a steak bar on, you know, we've got to go through the customs. I said, it's all right, I've got my passport. So we go through the customs and come back after we've had our meal. It took us 2 hours to cross the border. They said, have you got your passport? I said, yes, the interrogators. I said, I've got a passport, I'm an English citizen. I'm in Canada, I'm going to America, I'm not. I said, what's the problem? Homeland Security, sir. The neck tightened. We've got security at the airports. You know, when you go through, you've got to pass all your luggage through the x-rays. Do you know why? In case you carry a gun. Nonsense. Do you know how many terrorists, how many planes have been blown up in the last 10 years? Do you know any? Do you know any planes that have been blown up and yet you still go through security? See, once they implement it, they're not going to take it away. We're still worried, what about security? We've got to go through security to fly. There's no fear of flying. More people die on the roads than die in plane crashes. When was the last terrorist attack on a plane? Can you remember? You can't. I remember in Scotland there was one, wasn't there? Lockerbie, yeah. That was probably 25 years ago. They're very rare. There's no problem with terrorism, with travel. But you can see when the disasters happen, they make laws to take our freedom away and they never lift them off. They use terror to control us. Do you know how many Americans die from terror attacks each year? There's 247 million Americans, right? 70 Americans die from terror attacks every year. 500,000 die from coronary heart disease. 500,000 have a heart attack. And 70 die of terrorism. What's all the talk about? Can you see? It's an illusion, isn't it? But they put fear in us. They planned to use communism as a threat. There was no threat of communism. You know, the Cold War, it was a hoax. Russia and America and Britain were all in the same club. The directors were all Masons. You know, our Prime Minister was a Mason and their Prime Minister was a Mason. And I told you how we worked together for education. They're all in the same club. They're all in the occult, the world leaders. It was a hoax. American and British money financed the Russian Revolution. Did you know that? The Rothschilds, the Rockefeller, the Schiffs, the Wartburgs in America, they supplied it. The Bush family, Rudolph Bush, Bush's great-grandfather, financed Hitler through the steel. They financed the wars. America's the world's biggest arms dealer, and they sell arms to their enemies. It's all the same club. We've got to get our eyes off the newspapers. But they use the threat of terrorism, this threat of the war in Russia and Ukraine. They use it. They could end the war overnight. Russia's got enough power to wipe Ukraine off the map. But it's programmed. They know what they're doing. It's to cause terror and fear. What if they attack England? They've got rockets and missiles that could hit London, you know. Fear. Pandemics, they use pandemics, don't they? Floods, all sorts of things. The final flare is the threat of alien invasion. I'll talk about that later. They've planned that, whether they'll ever implement it, but they planned to say there's an alien invasion to put everyone in fear. We'll have to unite. We need a one world government to fight against this attack. It's a world attack. I won't go into that, but it's all fear. Hollywood's preparing us with all these films about attacks from aliens and that. All right, fear they use. Religion. Did you know the devil inspires every religion, including Christianity? Christianity is a pagan religion. The Catholic Church started Christianity. I call myself a Christian because I'm following Christ. But the early church weren't a religion. Jesus didn't die to start another religion. He hated it. He criticised Judah and Israel because they started a religion. He started a relationship with a nation and they turned it into Judaism. And he hated it. He criticised the leaders of the religion. God came to give us a relationship with the Creator. Religion is to conform you. It's a form of politics. And the Catholic Church brought all the pagan doctrines in and all the gods into to the church. They brought the doctrines. They brought the pagan gods. They brought, you know, the robes that the Catholics and the Church of England wear, the purple and the ermine. They're all from witchcraft, the Druids and all that. That's where they wear the robes. It's come from witchcraft. Where's that in the Bible that we wear robes? Did Jesus wear special garments, purple and blue? He was just a man. Did Paul wear a clerical collar and a hat? Dagon, the fish god. You know, the hat that the bishops wear, that's Dagon, the fish god. It's amazing, isn't it? The Pope's the most satanic world leader. It's amazing if you go into it. Satan wants religion because the root word religion, it's a Latin word, it means to bind, to adhere to. It's to bind you, to control you. Religion controls. All religions are founded on the fear of the many and the cleverness of the few. That's a good quote, isn't it? All religions are founded on the fear of the many and the cleverness of the few. The few control the many with fear. You'll go to the lake of fire if you don't go to Mass. It's a mortal sin. If you don't pay your tithes, God will be angry with you. If you don't go to church, you're a loose cannon and you've got to go to church or you're not a real Christian. You've got to agree these doctrines because you're a Baptist. Or you've got to agree these doctrines, you're a Pentecostal. And you can't mix with other Christians. You can't go to a Baptist church because you're a Pentecostal. Can you see how it's control? There should be no walls, no denominations. Paul decried it. Paul says denomination is satanic. He said, are you not carnal? I'm of Paul and I'm of Apollos. I'm a Pentecostal, I'm a Baptist, I'm this, I'm a Christian. He says, are you not carnal? Did the Baptist die for you? Did Paul die for you? Were you baptized in the name of the Pope? It's Christ. We're all Christians in the true sense because we're following Christ, but it's a personal relationship, not through the church. You are the church. It's not the building. You can't go to church because you're the church. We're the church. This building isn't a church, neither is a cathedral a church. It's just where the church meet. But that's religion. And whenever you've got religion, you've got control and you've got the symbolism. In the churches, the higher the church, the more demons they've got, and the gargoyles on the buildings. And they put dead bodies round the church, the graveyards round the church. They're dead. That's the devil's domain. That's the devil's trophies, death, isn't it? And we put all death round the church. There's something wrong, isn't there? Fancy having a graveyard round God's house, if it is God's house. It's a pagan church is a pagan temple. As soon as you put a religious artifact, whether it's a cross or a Madonna or a stained glass window with a saint on it, be it John Wesley or a good man or a bad man, it's a graven image. You've got a pagan temple. We're the temple of God. God dwells in us, not buildings. So, what did Napoleon say about religion? All religions have been made by men. If you have a relationship with God, what on earth do you need a religion for? And if you've got a religion, it hinders a true relationship with God. You can't have both. If you've got a personal relationship, you can't be religious. And if you're religious, it's because you've not got a true relationship with God. It's me and God. I don't care what you think. If your doctrines are all different than me, tough. I know my God. This is what God's revealed to me. And I hope you say the same. And I hope we agree. Oh, that's what God showed me. That's what God showed me. But I'm not going to listen to men because men didn't save me. The Holy Ghost will teach us. That doesn't mean I don't believe in an order and elders. Of course I believe there's teachers and pastors. Of course I believe in order. But the pastor's not God, is he? You've got to vet the pastor. One speak, the others. You should judge what I'm saying. You don't have to agree with me. I'll give you the license. You can disagree with everything I say. Come and tell me. It's all right. I'm not God. This is just my revelation. So take it or leave it. I'm free, aren't I? I'm free to speak what God's given me, and you're free to accept or reject it. There's no pressure in relationship. When you put pressure in a relationship, it alienates the relationship. If I put too much pressure on my wife, I'll lose my relationship. And if she puts pressure on me, I'll back off. I'll say, whoa, back off, you're putting pressure on me. You don't need pressure with a relationship, do you? It's love. It's kindness. In relationship, it's not pressure. To only have God is not acceptable to most Christians. I remember Jeff Bates, a friend of mine, a minister, he said he went to this lady and she says, oh, I've lost this and I've lost that and I've lost it and all I've got is God. He says, oh, has it come to that? God can't be everything to you until he's all you've got. Until you've got nothing but God, he's not everything to you. You've got to let go of everything, baggage everything, your religion, your doctrines. It's just God. The doctrines don't save you, do they? It's God. He's a person. He's living. He's got personality. You can entreat him. You can change God's mind. The people did in the Bible. You can appeal to God. He's real. He's living. He's not a statue, a mantra. Well, if I say this, God has to do it. He doesn't have to do anything. He's God. That's why he's God. He doesn't have to do anything. You can't use formulas on God, can you? Like my kids can't use formulas on me. You've got to do it. You're my dad. I'll say, have I? I'll show you whether I'm your dad or not. Bend over. I don't have to do anything. I'm your dad. I do it because I love you and I want to do it, but don't try and force me, son. You can't force me. I'm your dad. You're the child. Can you see how God is? He's our father. Don't put pressure on God. Go as a child to him and have a cry and say, Daddy, can you help me? It's not acceptable to most Christians who are they've got. They need the support of a religion. We're prone to religion. People need, you're made to worship. You can't not worship. Did you know that? It's impossible not to worship because it's in your DNA to worship. And if you don't worship the true God, you'll worship something created. You'll worship your wife. You'll worship the cat. You'll worship an idol. You'll worship something. You'll worship atheism. But you've got to worship. The question is, what or who will you worship? Not, will you worship? Of course you will. You can't not do. Man was made to worship. You can't not. The problem is, if you don't worship the Creator, you worship the creation, something in the creation. It may be yourself. I've heard people say, I don't need God, I'm God. I'll make all the decisions, I'm God. They're worshipping themselves. Most people do it, although they don't realise. We feel secure when we're in a religion. We don't want to stand out from the crowd. So if we all agree the same, we've all got the same doctrines, we're safe because we're Baptists and we all agree the same and we all have our little holy huddles, you see. We're Baptists. Oh, well, we're brethren and we don't mix with you because we've got different doctrines. And you feel secure in your little group. We shouldn't have any groups. To have I call myself Barratt Ministries, you've got to have a name and identity. But when you start a denomination, when you try to make a name for yourself, that's Babylon. What did they say? Let's make a name, let's build a tower and let's make a name for ourselves. A denomination is making a name for itself. If we've got all the churches banded together, we can call it United Churches. We call it Assemblies of God, Elim. We can pool our resources. We'll have more clout with the government. We can, of course, you bring business practices in and the world in, organisation and sales techniques. And you've got Babylon, haven't you? Because you're making a name of yourself. God says, Jesus said little flock. He didn't say mega church. He said little flock. We're never meant to be big. When you get too big for a house, you meet in another house. You don't need a building. That's ego. I'll build the biggest church in Manchester. That's ego. When you're playing at God. God said he'll build a church. You preach the gospel. A minister is only meant to preach. He's not trying to build a church. Jesus said, I will build my church. He'll add daily to the church that should be saved. I've got another quote from Napoleon. I like this. Religion is excellent stuff for keeping the common people quiet. It keeps the mugs, keeps them quiet, religion. Let them have a religion, let them worship, let them have the holy water and the chants and the religion. It keeps them quiet. They won't rebel while they're religious, you know, because the religions say don't rebel, obey those in authority, and they quote them. So it's safe. It's excellent stuff for keeping common people quiet. He was part of the One World Order. He made a concordat with the Pope. Religion has been used to gain control of masses based on fear and ritual and services and the bane of freedom and individuality. You know, I grew up in a Pentecostal church, so they said, we're free, brother. We've got the gifts of the Spirit. We're free in this church. They're not free. Every meeting's the same. I could tell you what the next meeting will be like. They all meet and they start on time. They have half an hour's worship and the pastor looks at the worship leader if he goes on a bit longer, like it's his time. And then they have the collection, then the announcements, then an item in song, and then the preaching, and then we have coffee and go home. It never alters. They're not free. Have you been to a church and you get there and it's 7 o'clock and the pastor says, right, I'm going to preach first. I've got a message burning on my heart. Forget the worship, forget everything. I'm going to preach first. Why doesn't he alter the order of the service? Because he's religious. That's what we do. And the congregation, the bigger the church, the less the congregation have a say. Somebody can't start a chorus in a big church, can they? It's all got to be led, choreographed from the pulpit. There's no freedom. And if you've got a word from God, you've got to go to the pastor and have it vetted. I've got a vision from God, and he'll listen to it, and he'll say yes or no. God spoke to you, and you've got to vet it with a man. If you hear from God, you're not always right, so I better check it with the pastor. Well, the pastor's bigger than God, isn't he? He vets God. What's the pastor frightened of? What's the pastor frightened? All right, they say it and they're in the flesh. So the pastor gets up and educates the people and say, look, that person sins it, but I judge that's in the flesh. You decide for yourself. I'm trying to help you. A pastor is good if he says, that's of God, let's follow it up. Forget the service. That's a prophecy from God. Let's follow it. But they don't. The service has to go on. You know, because we've all got to get home. The dinner's in the oven and the United's playing at 3 o'clock. So we've got to finish at 2:30 to let people go. So they're not free at all, are they? I was in America in a big church and I sat next to the pastor on the platform right to me, and he said, we're free here. Just feel free. I tested them out one time. They had the worship service, and the first service, the first hymn, I felt God on the choruses. Well, why do you sing choruses? Why do you have worship? It's to get in the presence of God, isn't it? So God can speak. You know, you come out of the world into the outer court, using the temple as an analogy. You're out in the world, you come into the outer court, and you wash your clothes and all that. And then you get to the inner court, and then you go to the holies of holies to meet with God. So the music's supposed to take us out of the world, wash the world dust off us. We praise God. For what? For the announcements. We've had the worship and we're all in God's presence, and we'll give the announcements for the next week. We're supposed to sing to get in God's presence, to hear God. And when we feel God, then the pastor should say, right, I'm going to preach, or somebody should stand up and prophesy, because we're in God's presence. The only worship to get in God's presence, what's the point of getting God's presence and not listening to him? And God says, oh, I was going to speak to you. You got into the holiest of holies. That was wonderful worship. I was going to speak to you and give you some mystery and some wonderful revelation. And this silly old woman sang in the flesh. Or the pastor give the announcements and deaden the meeting, and the Holy Ghost, the dove is gentle, and the Holy Ghost says, I'm off. He's a gentle dove and he goes. And they carry on the meeting. So I felt God, and I said to the pastor, I'll preach now. He wouldn't let me. He said they were free, but we don't know. He said, let them sing a bit more. They've had a highway. Let them let off a bit of steam. That's what he said. Let them let off a bit of steam. You know, let them come in. He wouldn't let me preach. And he said they're free. See, they kid themselves. They're not free at all because they're religious. They're religious. They have to go through the service. They have an order of service. And if Jesus turned up, they'd say, wait a minute, Jesus. This lady has been practicing for 3 weeks to sing. Will you let her sing first? And Jesus says, I'll go. I'll come back next week. And he comes back next week. And the same thing's happened. Jesus, just wait a minute. We're going to do the announcement. We don't preach till after the announcements, you know, because God moves after the preaching. So we don't want to give the announcements. So we give them before the preaching. So you understand, Jesus, will you wait a minute while we give the announcement? Jesus says, I'll see you next week. In the end, they get sick and never turns up at the church. And they go through the motions. And it's all in the flesh, and they have a wonderful time. They praise God and they worship. They had a wonderful time around the golden calf, you know, singing and stripping naked, and a wonderful celebration. It's fun. It can be fun celebrating Jesus and worshipping, but it's all in the flesh. We've got to get reality. Well, I'm getting carried away. 10. Promiscuity and pornography. That's part of the plan in the elders' the elders of Zion, the protocols of the elders they say that they will bring in debauchery and promiscuity and pornography because they know it degrades a nation. They know a nation is ripe for takeover when the morals go. We've got history, the Roman Empire, they became decadent and they were having feasts and orgies and all those things and they lost the power. It's the sign of a decaying empire, isn't it? Immorality. And so they've planned it to do it. It's not, 80% of hits on Google are pornography. 80% of all hits are pornography. Little kids are 5 are watching pornography and they don't even know what it is. They're just watching it. You can watch bestiality. You can watch child sacrifice. You can watch anything if you know where to get it on the internet. It's amazing. And it's, family life's obsolete. They're trying to get rid of it, family life. We're all bisexual anyway, aren't we? That's what biorhythms is about. I've got part of the female in me and you've got part of the male in you. You're a woman. So we're all bisexual, really. That's nonsense, isn't it? Of course I've got testosterone and estrogen, is it? Of course we've got the balance. But that doesn't make me a part woman, does it? I'm 100% a man. You're 100% a woman. But they use clever science and people to think that we're all bisexual and that. It's terrible, isn't it? Do you know Hollywood has flooded the world with pornography? I've not bothered updating this because I thought, what's the point? Because I preached this in 2006. But in 2006, that's a lot of years ago, Hollywood produced 607 titles. Blockbusters, Superman and that, the 607 titles. The global pornography film industry, dominated by USA, released 11,000 titles in the same year. 11,000 films of pornography. 607. The majority of Hollywood is pornography. You don't know that, do you? But I'm telling you the facts. The world's been flooded with images that corrupt the minds. Did you know the pornographic industry? It's worth 10 to 15 billion dollars a year. It's big business. 10 to 15 billion dollars a year. That's more than the revenue of professional sport and live music combined. That's the pornography industry. It's massive. You have no idea. We're not into it, are we? But it's massive. It's worldwide. It's a pandemic. The kids are hooked on it. Pastors are hooked on it. It's amazing. It's so available, isn't it? I get pornography when I don't want it. I get emails every week. This Anna wants to contact you. If I click on it, there's Anna with no clothes on saying, do you want sex tonight? You can click on your computer, even though you can get it. They're so devious to get it in. Men have got to really be strong. I don't know about women, but I know as a man I've got to be really strong because they put images there that I don't want. And I hate that. If I choose to do it, that's up to me. But when they force it on you with emails and it's quite innocuous, I think Eva wants to contact you. I think maybe she wants to find Christ, you see. Maybe she's watched my video. How do I know? Evelyn wants to contact you. I think, well, maybe she's watched my video and she wants some advice. I click on it. She wants sex for the night. Find a woman in Manchester who's desperate for her. I got all these emails. There's somebody waiting. There's 6 women within 2 miles who want sex with you tonight. I get emails and I think, thank God I built myself up to be strong, and I delete them. But I don't know how many a week I get, and I wipe my thing, I change my password, they still come. And I'm glad they come, because I've got to learn to be strong. If they never come, you're never tested and you may fall. I thank God that they come, because every day I think, no, I'm not going there, no. It makes you strong. You need the test. Men need the test, because it'll get caught out. We've got to control. But I'm just saying how the devil's got the world. And the young people have no idea. They think it's normal. The agenda of gay pride isn't to compel us to accept same-sex marriage. It's to get to the world to accept that marriage is obsolete. There's no such thing as marriage. We're all bisexual. You can just go with who you want, whenever you want. Marriage is obsolete. They're trying to break down family life because the country is as strong as the family unit. And the one world order, they deliberately do it. It's not the politicians, don't blame the politicians. It's the people who are above them, they're instructing them to bring this. They know that it's not good for the country. This is what the Protocols of the Elders of Zion says, chapter 10, preparing for power. In this way, by incalculating in all self-importance, we shall destroy among the Goyim. That's the fools, like the gorgers. The gypsies call the non-gypsies the gorgers. The Jews call them the Goyim. It's the same thing, the dogs, those outside. The importance of the family and its educational values, and remove the possibility of individual minds splitting off. They're going to flood the world with pornography to destroy the family life. They've openly said it. Number 11 and the last one. Mind control. I don't know whether you know anything about mind control, but it's very sophisticated. In the old days, they did it with brainwashing, repetition. God is dead, God is dead, God is dead, God is dead. And in the end, you say God is dead. Because the brainwash you, repetition, that's the only way you learn. So that was a very crude method. Now, they can do it electronically. They can do it with drugs. They control it. And through abuse, they have monarch slaves. America had a program, the monarch program, I don't know if you know, in the 50s, learning to control people. And they abuse them, especially in the military. They abuse them from being babies. They rape them when they're 6 months old, 8 months old. They put them in cages and torture them. And what happens when you've got so much torture? Your mind is defragmented into departments. And because of the pain, you can't face it. So that's another world. So you've got this world where it's normal, and then you've got this world of terror and anguish and torment and pain. And they can make multiple personalities. Most pop stars have two personalities. They call it their alter ego. Listen to the pop stars talk. And when they go on stage, another power, the other personality takes charge. When they're outside, they say, oh, I'm a Christian, I go to church and I do that. When they're on stage, they're gyrating sexually and saying all sorts of things because that's the other person. Oh, that's Mavis. They have names for them, their other personality. They've been tortured as children and they're monarch slaves. They can trigger them. They use them for presidential prostitutes. They can trigger, they forget what they've done. They can do abominable acts, and then with a trigger, they can forget it. That's that part of the mind. They're now in the normal mind again, so they forget, and they use it for spies. There's a woman who was a monarch slave. Bob Hope was her trainer. Bob Hope was in the occult. And Bob Hope was a trainer, and he trained her. And that's why he went round the world with the American troops. He was using it, and he'd take this girl who'd been programmed under another ego, and when they got to the president of, say, Russia, she would go and he would have the keyword and she'd tell him the secrets from America. And then they'd trigger it and she'd forget she'd said it. She'd know she'd been to America, she'd know she'd done this, but she won't know what she said because the user, it's like a computer, and the program, they can remember whole things, they can remember whole books by memory when they program. It's unbelievable what they do. I don't suggest you get into it because the torture they use them is horrific, but it's well documented. And America have now accepted that they did these programs. At first they denied it. MK Ultra, if you're interested to check the programs. And it's now, you can get after so many years, you can get the public documents, can't you? They're released. The US government confirmed they had programs to control people such as MK Ultra and Monarch. When you see the pop stars, they've often got a butterfly. They have a butterfly tattoo. They have a butterfly on the face because that's a monarch butterfly, because they call the mind control monarch control. And it triggers them. Walt Disney was used. A lot of his cartoons, films, they trigger the mind control. Wizard of Oz is a great monarch control. Because it's a fantasy. The red shoes, and she clicks the heels. The Pope has red shoes, doesn't he? She has red shoes and she click them like the Nazis. It's all mind control. The Wizard of Oz, the wizard. We think it's a wonderful story, but it's not. It's about the Wicked Witch of the North, and it's about the Iron Man. They're all symbolic, and it's used in programming. They watch these. Michael Jackson used to watch Disney. Have you read? He was besotted. He watched Disney all the time. It was controlling him. The messages came through whenever he saw them, so that it controlled him. He was forgive me saying, he was a freak, wasn't he, Michael Jackson? He had facial surgery to look like a woman, and he was mind controlled. Most of the pop stars are mind controlled. They're not free. That's why they let you know. They put the one-eye signal. I'm a slave. They have butterflies on their albums. They're letting you know. The US government confirmed they had programs to corrupt people such as MK Ultra and Monarch. To think they don't still have them is gross naivety. They said, oh, we don't do the programs anymore. We did them in the 50s, but we don't do them now. Of course they do, they're more sophisticated now. A classified CIA document dated 7th of January 1953 describes the creation of multiple personalities in 19-year-old girls. This is a CIA document. There are 18,000 pages of declassified CIA mind control documents that can now be downloaded from the US government. You are allowed to download them because they're declassified, because it's 53. We're finished with that program. We tried it, and it explains how they made multiple personalities of women. This is document BB32. I'm quoting from a CIA document. These subjects have clearly demonstrated that they can pass from a fully awake state to a deep hypnotic control state by telephone, by receiving written matter, or by use of a code, signal, or words that control of those hypnotised can be passed from one individual to another without great difficulty. A certain word can put them in this other personality. It has also been shown by experimentation with these girls that they can act as unwilling couriers for information purposes. The CIA and the British government use mind control people as couriers because they can switch them off. Under torture, they can't reveal the secrets, can they? Because they've no memory of it. It's another personality. But they do it through torture and drugs. It's horrific that what they have to go through. A lot of the pop stars, Cliff Richard, The Doors, lots of pop stars, look at the history. Their parents were in the military. And the military were used for the mind control. A lot of the pop stars are mind control. Cliff Richard, his parents, he was born in India. His parents were in the military, The Doors. So many, I forget names now, but dozens and dozens. It's out of all proportions that all the pop stars, the parents were in the military. Not all of them, of course, but of course they're mind control. They use it. Many of them are. Anyway, I won't go into it. Powerful men have always sought to control individuals, haven't they? Control the masses. Aldous Huxley in his book Brave New World. Have you ever read Brave New World? You should read it. They prophesy, like George Orwell, they prophesy what's going to happen. And this is what he said. This is years ago. Huxley was 70, 80 years ago, wasn't he? It's perfectly possible for a man to be out of prison and yet not free. To be under no physical constraint and yet to be psychologically captive, compelled to think, feel and act as the representative or the national state or some private interest without the nation. Within the nation wants him to think, feel and act. He's not aware of it. The nature of psychological, let me read it from that. The victim The nature of psychological compulsion is such that those that are under constraint remain under the impression that they are acting under their own initiative. They think it's them, they don't know they're being controlled. Can you see? The victim of mind manipulation doesn't know he's a victim. To him, the walls of his prison are invisible and he believes himself to be free. That he is not free is apparent only to other people. His servitude is strictly objective. You can control people. That was 1958. It's much more sophisticated now. They can do it through microwaves and so many other things. Well, the CIA originated its first program in 1950 under the name Bluebird MK-Ultra, and it officially began in 1953. Dr. Joseph DeValdo, a neurosurgeon and Yale professor who worked for the CIA, received funding for brain electrode research on children and adults. He received funding from the CIA to try brain electrodes to control people, give them shock treatment and give them altered personalities. This is what he says. It's a congressional record, 1974. Man does not have... So they asked him to come and appeal and say, do you think people could really be manipulated? And he said that man does not have the right to develop his own mind. This is how he counselled the government. They're stupid. The sheep. Man doesn't have a right to control his hand. We're the elite. We need to control him. We need to tell him how to think. This is how the elite think. We're just mugs. They're not capable. They're just useless eaters. They're just taking resources of the planet. Man isn't capable of developing his own mind, so we need to program it. This kind of liberal orientation has great appeal. We must electronically control the brain. That's why they want to put chips in us, to electronically control the brain. Someday armies and generals will be controlled by electric stimulation of the brain. They'll be told where to go, turn right, turn left, go here, fight this. Because they'll be controlling his brain with Your brain is only electrical impulses, so now we're so sophisticated, we can use the electrical impulses, if we have a chip, to tell you how to think. Men are not capable of thinking. That's how they think of us, as mugs. We have to control them. As well as media brainwashing and programming or manipulating the mind through trauma, there's a far more insidious way of mass programming people. It's now possible to put thoughts in people's minds without pain or repetition techniques. Did you know that microwaves, they can reach the part of your brain that thinks? They know about the brain now. They know what part thinks. The right side thinks, and this side is the emotional side. They know what part of the brain thinks, and they can put thoughts in your mind by microwaves. You can think it's your thought. You can be walking down the road, you pass an antenna, and you get the thought. You think it's your thought, but they can put thoughts. They can put a whole city under it, get them to think a certain way. They have the power to do that now. Have you heard about HARP transmitters? They can change the weather patterns. They can bounce waves. They can cause tsunamis. They can do tremendous things. Scientists have been secretly studying and experimenting for many years with HARP transmitters, microwave technology. I'm not going to explain it because I've said enough. You can check it out yourself. You just need to know the devil's plan, how he's using our minds through sport, through manipulation, through mind control. Well, let me come to an end. We're in the last stage, aren't we, of control by the satanic system, surely. Let me tell you the 3 stages. Number 1, the Industrial Revolution. Men worked on the land, didn't they? We were farmers, we had animals, we traded. Men worked on the land. That's what God intended men to work on the land. What did the Industrial Revolution do? It took us off the land into cities where all the sin and abortion and vices in the city, they're never in the country. Where people are herded like chickens in high-rise flats, like chickens in a coop, instead of being on the land, having your own land, and put people in factories and regimented them. A farmer gets up when the sun gets up. He milks the cows because he needs to. It is governed by the sun and the rain and the weather, God's creation. But now, no, you've got to clock on. If you don't clock on exactly, if you're 2 minutes late, you lose some of your bonus. We're regimented. We've got to be robots. You've got to clock on to work and clock off when you leave. Do you understand how they get in as schools? The church started educating people. Now we're in schools. And if you're a minute late, you get the strap. You've got to learn to be on time because we're going to put you in factories and make you robots. And so there's men sat all day, instead of milking cows and in God's creation, he's sat at a machine and he's putting a nut on a wheel before robots. He's putting a nut on a wheel and the conveyor belt comes along and he puts another nut on a wheel of a car. And all day he's doing that, or shaving the hairs off gooseberries all day long, putting frogmen in Kellogg's packets. It's mind destroying, isn't it? He's supposed to be creative, man, and be in God's nation, but he's in a factory shaving the hairs off gooseberries, doing stupid things. Can you see how they're taking over our bodies with the Industrial Revolution? That was the first thing of saying that's the outer core. The devil's already got us. We're all regimented. We're on time. You're 2 minutes late. Jesus said, let's go to Jerusalem, and it took him a few days, and he walked and he stopped and healed somebody on the way. He didn't say, we'll get there at 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, have the tea ready. He got there when he got there, but we're so regimented because we control, we're robotic. The devil's taking over our bodies within the Industrial Revolution. Then we've got the computer age. That's to take over our minds. We're locked in. I must take a selfie every 2 seconds. I must check on Facebook. We're controlled by the media, by electronics. I wonder if somebody said something. We can't do anything. When the television stops, when we've had a meal, we'll just see if anyone's contacted me on Facebook. We're controlled by the electronics now. I won't go into it, but it's taken over our minds. That's the holy place. What's the holiest of holies? Our heart. The third place is worship. Satan wants worship, but he's got to take over our bodies first and then our minds. And the last thing will be worship to Satan. The whole world will worship him, and he's preparing us with music and all sorts of, getting rid of our morals, so we'll worship the beast. Can you see how far the plan is? The Industrial Revolution's gone. It's taken over our bodies. We're in the age of the computer. He's taken over our minds. All the thing he's got to do is take over our spirits. And he's got the whole man. He's got us body, mind and spirit. He's got us all. Satan's 2/3 of the way for his plan. He's only got to take over our spirit. So when you worship him, he's got our spirit. When you worship God, he's got your spirit. When you worship yourself, but when you're saved, you worship God. God's got your spirit. You've access to the holiest of holies. We have boldness to enter the holiest of holies. When you worship Satan, you have access to Satan. He'll give you the powers. Maybe I don't have all the details. I'm just whetting your appetite. I'm going to give you some scriptures to end, because we want to end on a positive note, don't we? In the end, there'll be nobody, because those who won't take the mark will be killed. If you don't take the mark, you won't live. It said those that won't worship the beast will be killed. You won't have to worry about the mark. The question isn't will you take the mark, it's will you worship the beast. Those who worship the beast will get the mark. The mark is your freedom. Do you understand how the world will think? Your mark is, the vaccine passport was your freedom. It was slavery, but it's the passport. Oh, I can travel now. I can go to the supermarket. I can do. So the mark is the passport to freedom. Oh, I can buy and sell. I can travel. I can do this, because you've taken the mark of the beast. But if you only get the mark when you worship. If you worship the beast, you can buy and sell. You'll have a good life. We'll look after you. Damnation. But those who won't worship the beast will be killed. It's not, you won't have a problem with the mark, it's will you worship. You only get the mark when you worship. Do you want to read it? 2 Thessalonians 2, 3 and 5. Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away. That's the church. The world can't fall away. They've never been up to fall, have they? It's the church shall be fallen away. And the man of sin be revealed, the son of damnation. That's the one world dictator, isn't it? Who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, all that is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So that this will be the real God to the world. They worship him because he's the real God. They won't think he's the counterfeit, and most of the church will be deceived and worship him. Remember not, I told you these things when I was with you. Paul said, don't forget, I told you, I warned you, and he's warning us today. So let's read it in Revelation 13. It's another study, but it's worth putting. This is the Antichrist, not the man of sin. People are looking for one man. They think the Antichrist is the man of sin. He's not. There's a one world dictator, the beast, and there's a woman, the Antichrist. The Antichrist is a woman, the whore of Babylon, who rides the beast. So there's two, isn't there? There's a woman and the beast she rides upon. That's what they showed in the Commonwealth Games, the bull, and there's a woman sat on top. So the woman is the Antichrist. The woman is always the religious counterfeit, and the political is the bull. Europe, the myth of Europa, the woman who rides the bull, it's named after it. So the Antichrist does great wonders. This is not the one world dictator. He doesn't do miracles. It's the religious that does miracles. Be careful you don't run around after miracles. You may be following the Antichrist. Follow Christ, not the miracles. We love the giver of the gifts, not the gifts. Don't love power. Love the one who gives power. Love God. And he doth great wonders, so he makes fire come down from heaven in the sight of men. They say this is Elijah, the prophet, come back. He's brought fire down from heaven. This is the Antichrist. He'll convince the world and the church. They're singing these are the days of Elijah. Of course they are. The counterfeit Elijah is going to bring fire from heaven. And deceive them that dwell on the earth by the means of the miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, in the sight of the one world dictator. Say to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast which had the wound by the sword and did live. And he had power to give life to the beast, image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. We've not come to the mark yet. Those that would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Okay. Next verse. And he caused all, both great and small, rich and poor, to receive a mark in the right hand and the foreheads. You won't be asked to receive the mark. If you don't worship, you're topped. If you worship, he calls everyone to have the mark. Can you see Christians are worried about the mark and what it is? It's of no consequence. Get yourself ready not to bow, like Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego. If the killers, the killers, but we will not bow. Get yourself ready. Forget the mark. That comes after. That's the passport to people who are freedom. Say, I'm not having been vaccinated. I don't want the passport. The passport is to trap you. The chip is to trap you, whatever it comes. And that no man might buy or sell, say they have the mark or the name of the beast or the number of the beast. It's about worship, not the mark. The occult, the New Agers, they're all talking about, oh, what's the mark of the beast? And it's a red herring. Forget the mark of the beast. Of course it's in the Bible, but it's about worship. Satan wants worship. And if you worship him, he'll mark you. But God will mark you. In Revelation, he marked them in the forehead. You're going to get marked one way or the other. If God doesn't mark you, the devil will. You'll get marked. You'll serve somebody. It might be God or be Satan, but you serve somebody. Is that the N17J? Yeah. The plan of Satan is to be like God. So he's going to get worship. That's what he wants. He's not interested in marking you. He's interested in worship. That's a consequence. So his deception is his first tool, not terror. Satan always wants to deceive you because he wants you to do it with your own free will. If you won't, then terror, the fiery furnace. Come and bow to the statue, worship the statue. And they all did. But if you don't, terror, the fiery furnace. But the devil's last aim is terror. He doesn't want terror. He wants free will worship like God. But God won't use terror. The devil will. So deception's his first tool. So how carefully must we live? So we must take heed to the warnings in scriptures that talk about the end of the world. Let me just give you a few scriptures that talk about the end of the world so we know how to live. 1 Thessalonians 5. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction. He's talking about the last days. So when we have a dictator who says world peace, we've solved the housing problem. Nobody's without a house. We've solved the poverty in the world. Nobody's poor. Everyone's got a job. We've solved all the wars. There's no more wars. We've got a one world army, a one world government. When they say peace, peace, then sudden destruction. Watch out. He'll obtain the kingdom by flatteries. Peace, peace. Then cometh sudden destruction upon them as travail upon a woman with child. They shall not escape. It's a bit late, woman, when you're in labour. Oh, I shouldn't have made love to that man. Too late. You're in labour. You can't have an abortion now. You're going to have an abortion anyway. It's called a live baby at 9 months. When you're in labour, that's it. It's too late. And it's saying it'll come like labour pains. In other words, it doesn't matter what you do. The baby's coming. You can't stop it now. It'll kill you if you don't get it out. You know that, women, don't you? If you keep the baby for 15 months, you're dead. It'll kill you. So that's what it's like. But you, brethren, are not in the darkness. Well, the church are. I'm sad that the day should not overtake you as a thief. You're children of the light and children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. We should know. Therefore, let us not sleep as other Christians do. It's not talking about the world. They're not sleeping. They're dead. When you're dead, you're not sleeping. They're dead in trespasses and sins. It's Christians who can be alive or sleep. Don't sleep as other Christians do, but let's watch and be sober. For they that sleep, sleep in the night. They that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and for a helmet the hope of salvation. And 1 Peter 1, 9-13. Receiving the end of your faith. What's the end of our faith? We've not reached the end of it. It's a walk by faith, so where you're going. If you're walking by faith, there's a destination, isn't there? What's the end of your faith? The salvation of your souls. Your salvation isn't complete yet. Your spirit is redeemed. Christ redeemed you, your spirit, but your body's not been redeemed. You've still got this old Adamic nature that still sins. But when Jesus comes in, you get the new body, then your soul, the soul is the body with the spirit in it. Your whole body and spirit are redeemed. So you're waiting even the salvation of your soul. That's a complete man. Of which salvation the prophets have inquired to search diligently, who prophesied of the grace that should come unto you. The prophets prophesied and didn't know what they were talking about because Jesus hadn't come. Searching what or of what manner of time the Spirit of Christ which was in them did signify. They had the Spirit of Christ and prophesied through them, but they didn't know what they were talking about when it testified beforehand of the sufferings of Christ and the glory that should follow. Unto whom it was revealed that not only unto themselves, but unto us they did minister the things which are now reported unto you by them, that have preached the gospel unto you with the Holy Ghost sent down from heaven, which things the angels desired to look into. The prophets didn't understand it, and the angels don't understand it. They desire to look into it. It's a mystery to the angels, and it was a mystery to the prophets of old. Isn't it amazing that Paul said the mystery that was hid in times past is now revealed to us, who are the heirs of salvation. You know the mystery of God. You understand that we're going to get a new body. You understand what the end of salvation is. Your soul's redeemed and your body's going to be redeemed. Wonderful. Wherefore, conclusion, gird up the loins of your mind. Pull your socks up. Be sober. Hope to the end for the grace that is to be brought unto you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. 1 Peter 4:7. But the end of all things is at hand. We're coming to the end of the age. The end of all things is at hand. Be sober. Watch unto prayer. And Luke 21, the last one. This is Jesus. Take heed to yourself, lest at any time your heart be overcharged with satiety, partying, celebrating, and drunkenness, and cares of this life, burdens, baggage that we carry. So the day come upon you unawares. Fancy having a pity party when Jesus comes. Live every day as though Jesus will come today. That'll stop your moaning, that'll stop your groaning, that'll stop all your pity parties, won't it? Imagine Jesus is coming tonight. Get yourself ready tonight. It's too late tomorrow. For as a snare, it'll come upon the whole... You know what a snare's like? Oh, some nice cheese there. Wonderful. I like gorgonzola. It comes down, you get caught out. Like a snare, it'll come on all them that dwell on the face of the whole world's going to be trapped, and the Christians who are not free will be trapped with it. Get yourself free. And the last verse, watch therefore and pray always that ye may be accounted to escape all these things, and that shall come to pass and stand before the Son of God. Well, it's a good job I did that study in 2 parts. It was too much for one, wasn't it? And I'm a lot longer than I thought I would be. Let me just pray and then we'll close. Father, I've said a lot, and I realise it may be new to a lot of people who are watching, and it may surprise them, and they may not even believe it until they research it and find out that it's true. Lord, I've been studying this for 60 years. So I'm not just on a roll. I'm not just a conspiracy theorist, Lord. I've proved these things over many years. I've researched them. And you've revealed many things to me that I've not said. I pray, Father, that you'll prepare us for the time that's coming on the earth. I pray that you'll prepare us to stand before the Son of God. I pray that we'll put the past behind us and move on and get free of religion and come out of Babylon, so that we can be your bride. Because you're coming for a holy bride without spot or blemish. You're not coming for an organisation, a religion. You're not coming for Christians. You're coming for people who have a relationship with you. Help us, Father. I ask it in your name. Amen. God bless you. There's another study coming up. I hope you tune in. Have a wonderful week. God bless you.